Let's jump right into this explainer. Today we're going all the way back to ancient mythology, but honestly, the core conflict is something you're going to recognize instantly. We're talking about a classic mythological standoff that perfectly mirrors the kind of ego clashes we deal with every single day. It's just a fascinating look at how we measure our own worth, how we handle conflict, and ultimately how we completely redefine what it actually means to be superior. I mean, think about it for a second. Have you ever been in a situation, maybe it's a tense argument at work, a dispute with a neighbor, or literally just an awkward standoff in a narrow hallway, where neither side wanted to back down? You know that feeling, right? There's this intense interpersonal gridlock. Your ego just locks in and you think to yourself, I am absolutely not yielding. It's incredibly relatable. Well, today we're exploring an ancient story that captures this exact tension, and it drops us right in the middle of a traffic jam of epic mythological proportions. So let's dive into Section 1, the Royal Roadblock. The great sage Markandeya sets the scene for us, and I want you to picture this. We have King Suhotra of the Kuru race. He's just returning from visiting the great rishis, cruising along in his car, or, his chariot. Coming from the exact opposite direction is King Sivi, the son of Narada, also riding in his chariot. They meet face to face on this narrow path where only one can pass. Now, they greet each other respectfully, sure, but here is the massive problem. They are absolute equals. It's basically the most high-stakes royal case of road rage in ancient history. They are perfectly matched in age, in their qualities, in everything, so neither wants to give an inch. It's a mythological game of chicken, and neither king is willing to blink first.
Which leads us to Section 2. Enter the celestial sage.
Because listen, when two perfectly matched egos collide like this, you absolutely need an outside perspective to break the deadlock. Right at the peak of this intense standoff, a celestial rishi, a sage named Narada, suddenly appears on the scene. And what's great is that Narada isn't there to play politics or take sides based on alliances. He looks at these two mighty monarchs just sitting there stubbornly in their chariots, and he asks a highly practical, incredibly direct question. He basically says, why is it that you both stand here blocking each other's way? He's hitting the nail right on the head, asking, what exactly is the point of this ridiculous roadblock? And that brings us to Section 3, the rules of yielding. When Narada challenges them, the kings don't just admit they're being stubborn, oh no, they point straight to historical precedent. They explain that the sages of old actually laid down very specific rules for who gets the right of way. According to tradition, you're supposed to yield the path to either someone who is fundamentally superior to you or to someone who is objectively abler, like more physically capable. That is the established law of the land they're operating under. They're just following the rules, right? Well, there's a massive dilemma here. As they tell Narada, judged properly, there is no superiority amongst us. They've done the math. They've weighed their age, their strength, their royal lineage, their achievements, and it is a dead heat, a perfect tie. Because they're equal in literally every single traditional respect, neither one feels they have a moral or legal duty to step aside. They are perfectly trapped by their own equality. Let's see how they break this tie in Section 4, Conquering Through Goodness. Confronted with this logical trap, Narada doesn't try to argue their math. Instead, he completely changes the equation with a profound piece of wisdom. Listen to this. He that is wicked behaveth wickedly even unto him that is humble. He also that is humble behaveth with humility and honesty unto him that is wicked. Now, what Narada is doing here is crucial. He's separating a person's behavior from the reactions of others. A wicked person is going to be wicked no matter what you do, but a truly humble, good person, they maintain their integrity, their humility, and their honesty, completely regardless of how the other person is acting. Goodness isn't just a reaction, it's a constant state of being. And Narada takes it a step further. He frames honest behavior by saying, he that is honest regardeth the service that is done to him as if it were 100 times greater than it is. This is about a profound, almost radical level of deep gratitude. Narada points out that this standard of immense gratitude and unwavering honesty isn't just a nice human trait. It's a standard that is current amongst the gods themselves. We're talking about literal divine behavior here. And then we get to the true aha moment of the explainer. Narada provides a literal strategic playbook for dealing with conflict. This is exactly how ancient philosophy instructs us to counter negative traits. You don't fight fire with fire. That doesn't work. You fight the threat with the ultimate opposing weapon. You conquer the mean with charity. You conquer the untruthful with truth. You conquer the man of wicked deeds with forgiveness. And you conquer the dishonest by using absolute honesty. It's a total paradigm shift. The weapon here isn't a sword or a chariot. The weapon is virtue. So the really crucial point is how Narada actually applies this divine framework to the standoff right in front of him. He turns to King Suhotra of the Kuru race and makes his ruling. He declares, "Certainly, it is the royal son of Usinara, King Sivi, who is possessed of goodness that is greater than thine." Narada completely ignores their age, their fancy chariots, and their combat ability. He breaks the tie by identifying who possesses the greater capacity for this kind of moral goodness and large-heartedness. Which finally brings us to Section 5, the true superiority. I want you to really notice how this profound shift redefines what it actually means to win a standoff. After Narada speaks, King Suhotra doesn't get angry. He doesn't let his ego take over and argue with the referee's call. Instead, his reaction is just incredibly gracious. First, Suhotra physically steps down and walks around King Sivi in a traditional gesture of deep respect. Second, he actively praises Sivi's numerous achievements. And finally, Suhotra yields the way. He lets Sivi pass, and then he just continues on his own course. Suhotra recognizes that true nobility actually lies in recognizing and yielding to greater goodness. The core lesson the sage Markandeya was teaching here is so powerful. Superiority is a measure of moral goodness and forgiveness. It's not just about your age, your physical ability, or your social status. And we can translate this mythological anecdote directly into our own lives today. Think about it. This is essentially a masterclass on emotional intelligence and resolving conflict. When you're in a deadlock, the way to truly demonstrate superiority isn't by being the loudest or the most stubborn person in the room. It's by being the one who has the capacity to deploy charity, truth, honesty, and forgiveness. Which brings me to a final question I want to leave you with. The next time you face a stubborn roadblock in your life, when egos are clashing and nobody wants to give even an inch, what weapon of goodness will you use to conquer it? Will you use forgiveness? Honesty? Charity? Because as we've learned from this ancient standoff, the one who yields to goodness is, in fact, the one who is truly superior. Thanks so much for exploring this explainer with me today, and as always, keep learning.